Hello all. Just remember, this young lady is going to be picking her parents' nursing home, or in a couple of years you'll see her in Congress with the rest of the idiots.
Trisha, what is the
So
force?
dumb.
Trisha, what is the force that causes objects to fall to the ground?
Girl, you better.
I know this because my titties are low thanks to gravity.
Yay!
But
A
we
personal anecdote.
Can we just also say we don't actually need gravity? But that's a different thing.
What
Like,
do you mean by
I
that?
saw someone do this. Was this a TikTok? We were watching something where someone's like, "We don't actually need gravity." We were watching this with me. Like, we actually don't need it.
What do you mean that we don't need gravity?
What if it was never invented?
Invented by who?
Sir Isaac Newton.
Isaac Newton created gravity.
Whoever created gravity, someone did, but we don't actually need it.
There
Like,
was
we
a
could have
time
just
on
all.
there was a time on Earth before gravity existed.
Yes. Who created gravity, babe? Dan.
It was Isaac Newton. You're right.
You were in the
over it.
right ballpark. Sir Isaac Newton.
You can't even blame that on public schools. That's just frickin' stupidity. That is the end result of two cousins getting married and breeding. Or maybe even brother and sister. Unreal. Anyways, face shave today. This camera's giving me fits today. Oh yeah, I like it when it gives me problems on small adjustments. All right, it really is a pain in the butt. My mount is secure as hell. It ain't ever going anywhere. It's just getting it right. It moves too easily, and then when I want it to move just a wee bit, it doesn't want to move just a wee bit. It's like you got to really crank on it, and then it moves too much. Anyways. Today's face shave. Forest soap. I have an HC&C sample of Hidden Goddess. I don't know if you can make that out or not. That's not, the camera's not gonna pick it up. Hidden Goddess. I got that much in the bowl, which is probably too much now that I'm looking at it. For a razor. Going to use my Flying Pigeon, made in Shanghai, China, in the 60s. It's a tech copy, cheap tech copy, and we have determined that it is a copy of the Flying Eagle brand razor that was made in Shanghai, China. This is a cheaper version of the Flying Eagle. So the copy, excuse me, the copy was copied. It's extremely thin stamped sheet metal of some kind. The handle is aluminum at best. Alright, this came in yesterday. I just wanted to show it to you because I opened it up. I couldn't wait. If you guys remember, my one unboxing, I said that I ordered a new pipe, but I didn't look to see where the shipper was at. And the shipper was in Poland, and I wasn't going to get it to the end of next month. So I went back, and it was a competition. It was a debate between that pipe and another pipe. And I looked up where the other pipe was at, and it was in Texas. So guess what I ordered? I don't know if I can get it all on camera. There we go. Maybe that'll do it. It's a 16-inch Churchill. I always say that, Church Warden. I like the Church Warden pipes over the shorter pipes. I have a shorter pipe. It's only about that long. But the problem for me is when you draw the smoke, it's so flippin' hot you can barely hold it in your mouth. I like this because it gives the smoke a chance to cool as it's traveling up this long stem. And when it hits your mouth, it's not like you're inhaling lava. But I just wanted to show you that so you can see it. I opened that up yesterday when we came in. Can you see the patterning on that? Very nice. Smokes rather well. Alright, I know you're not interested in pipes. We're not. I'll tell you what, pipes are like razors. Some of those suckers are in the thousands. The handmade ones by the small artisans, they're expensive as hell. But I buy the cheap mass-produced, stamp them out in the factories. Anyways, I don't know if this is 18 or 20 millimeter. I think it's a 20. This is an Ever Ready 500 vintage brush. And we're gonna give it a workout. It's an old vintage boar brush. I'm using my yak horn bowl. I left just enough water in the brush. I think I got my soap right where I want it. Nice and creamy. Alright, I got all that crap out of the way. Spray the face. Dip the cube. So what are you guys up to? I appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate the new subscribers. Thank you all for showing up. Wet the hands. Lather this stuff up a bit. Work it in. Last time I shaved was Saturday, so we got 3 days of growth. If math is still correct. Oh. This brush is short. It slid all the way down into the bowl. Alright, let's... This is a great scent. This is a cologne type scent. Very, very good. I don't have anything that smells like this, really. I don't even know what the scent notes on this are. I couldn't even tell you. It's just a cologne type scent. Okay, that should do us. If you remember, last time I shaved, I went 3 passes with the grain. And it didn't work out. I did not get BPS. So, let's see if we can do BPS with 3 passes across the grain. I don't think we will. Oh, by the way, the blade is a 4th use Statum, made in India, by a company in England, made in India. Since this is a copy of a tech, it's generally a mild shaver. Let me tell you what, doing the first pass across the grain on my neck was like yeek. That was rough. You could feel the blade yanking them hairs. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I got notes. All right. September 13th, 1814. Do we know what happened on that date? That is the date that one Mr. Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. He wrote it after witnessing the bombardment of Fort McHenry in Baltimore Harbor, the British attack on Baltimore during the War of 1812. Okay. Now, what leads up to the events of him witnessing this attack from a ship in the harbor, part of the attack fleet. Not really part of it, but they're with the attack fleet. Mr. Francis Scott Key was a 35-year-old lawyer and part-time amateur poet. From Georgetown. Which was a suburb of Washington, D.C. And what happened, what led up to him witnessing this bombardment of Fort McHenry, was a friend of his, an elderly doctor by the name of William Benes, B-E-A-N-E-S, was captured by the British in his home. August 28th of 1814. The British were actually there for somebody who was in the doctor's home. They got him too. But they took the doctor too, saying that he was part of the reason that some British soldiers were captured and abused. After the burning of Washington and the raid on Alexandria, there were some British troops caught pillaging towns and houses, roaming around free, separated from their units. And they were caught pillaging. And the British were kind of upset about that because It just says they were caught pillaging. It never really says what happened to them after that. Don't know if that means they were executed or what, but the British were really pissed off about it. So they might have been executed for pillaging. I don't know. Like I said, it really doesn't say. Take that off of there, reapply it to the brush. So anyways, Mr. Francis Scott Key, all 35 years of him, makes his way to the harbor of Baltimore, where he meets up with a Colonel John Skinner, who is in charge of prisoner exchanges with the. He's an American soldier in charge of doing prisoner exchanges with the British. They hire a sloop, a small ship, crew of 9, that runs cargo up and down the river. So it's not a combat vessel, it's just a transport vessel. And they go down the river to the mouth of the Baltimore Harbor, past the port and everything, to meet up with the British fleet, which is gathering to commit an attack on Baltimore. Fort McHenry was beefed up. Its defenses were beefed up prior to the attack because the Americans knew the attack on Baltimore was coming. But the British had to get past the fort to attack Baltimore. So they built up the fort. So anyways, they meet up with the HMS Royal Oak, and they learn that the doctor is on the HMS Tonnant, further out the harbor, closer to the entrance of the harbor. And they go and they meet up with a lieutenant that brought on board, and they meet with a major colonel. Oh God, I can't read my own handwriting. Robert Ross and Vice Admiral Alexander Cochrane. They meet up with those two on the British ship. They all have dinner together and discuss the doctor's release. Major Colonel Ross was not going to let the doctor go until Francis Scott Key produced letters from British troops commending the doctor on his kindness in his treatment of them. These were wounded British troops, wounded fighting Americans, and they wrote letters saying that the doctor treated us kindly. He addressed our wounds. He was not, nothing grievous about it. He was just a kind doctor worried about saving people. So that convinced Major Colonel Ross to let the doctor go. So Skinner and Key and the doctor are waiting. They want to leave, right? Because the doctor's free, he can go. They want to leave. But the Major Colonel won't let them go because they have overheard plans of the attack on Baltimore, on the fort. They've overheard part of the plans for the attack. So they're held as captives until after the battle is over. Then they'll be released. That's why Francis Scott Key, saw the battle for Fort McHenry from a ship. He was not a prisoner of the British. He was just being held because he had heard plans of the attack. And instead of going and alerting American forces what was going to happen, he was held until after the battle. See, we were always taught that he was a prisoner of British on a ship forced to watch the attack when he wasn't. Okay. And Colonel Skinner, the American soldier who's in charge of securing prisoner releases from the British, said he insists that they be transported back to their sloop to watch the fight from there instead of being held on the Tonnant. Well, they're transferred from the Tonnant to the HMS Surprise instead. So they get transferred there, and Skinner again goes up to the captain of the Surprise and says, "Hey, we want to go back to our sloop, all right? Just let us go back to our sloop and we'll watch it from there." And the Surprise had the sloop in tow as they were heading towards the battle. So he let them go back to the sloop with a British guard, ground troops with rifles, muskets, to watch them to make sure they didn't try and escape. Still got some here. Cheeks are good. Most of the neck is good too. So I'm going to do an against the grain cleanup pass. How about that? You know, against the grain on the neck. How about that? There was a lot of slickness still on my neck from that soap. Okay, so they get transferred back to the sloop to watch the fight. And they're towed. Then the towing of the sloop is taken over by the Surprise, and the Surprise takes them the rest of the way to the attack. Okay. Now, during the fight, which started on the morning of the 13th, it rained all day and all night on the 13th into the 14th. And during that time, what is known as the storm flag for the fort is being flown. When the British get to the fort, the storm flag is up. And all through the bombardment, the storm flag is up. And the storm flag measures 17 feet by 25 feet. At this time, the flag has 15 stripes and 15 stars. We've added 2 more states since Revolutionary War. Okay. Now, here's an interesting part. The HMS Erebus, E-R-E-B-U-S, is the ship that provided the rocket's red glare in the poem that Scott wrote, the Star Spangled Banner, which was called The Defense of Fort McHenry. The Erebus provided the red glare, which was the rockets of the song, if you remember correctly. Now, the bombs bursting in air were provided by these ships. These are all British ships, all HMS ships. The Terror, the Volcano, the Devastation, the Meteor, and the Etna, E-A-T-N-A. They were heavy mortar ships, and they provided the bombs bursting in air. Between all those ships, between 1,500 and 1,800 bombs, mortars, were launched at the fort, and over 700 rockets. And only 4 U.S. soldiers died in the fort, and 24 were wounded. And from a battle that went from the morning sunrise on the 13th to sunrise on the 14th. Only 4 people died and 24 were injured. 1,500 to 1,800 bombs, 700 rockets were launched at that fort during that time. Still just a little bit right here. As always with my neck. because I'm yakking, and I was going to stretch this time for my neck pass, and I didn't do it. No face wash today. Don't have enough soap left over. As a little side note, I have to look at her name. Hang on. Mary Young Pickersgill. I always mess that name up. Pickersgill sewed her niece, two nieces, and a servant, an indentured African American servant, not a slave, just an indentured servant. There's a difference. Anyways, they sewed the two flags, the storm flag and the garrison flag, the big flag. All right, on the morning of the 14th, after the bombardment was over and the British were abandoning their attack, the storm flag was dropped and the garrison flag went up. And the garrison flag measured 30 feet by 42 feet. And these young ladies, the Miss Pickersgill, her two nieces, and the indentured servant, all those sewed those two flags for a price of $405 and change American at the time, which translates into like $2,200 in 2021 money. So it was pretty cheap. In pretty good shape right now. We're pretty good. We're done. So, like I said, there's no soap left over. I already squeezed that brush once. There's nothing left in it. No face wash today, even though it's a good scent to do a face wash with. So, these young ladies also their little asses off to make these flags. Now, Francis Scott Key he started writing the poem while he's on the sloop, when he witnessed the bombardment the next morning. After the bombardment was over and the rain had stopped, because like I said, it rained all the 13th and all night on the 13th, and it stopped for the morning of the 14th. So when it dried out, he had an envelope in his pocket from a letter that he always carried, and he pulled that out and he started composing this poem. The poem has 4 stanzas, and only the first one is used as the song we know as the Star Spangled Banner. But the poem has actually 4 stanzas. A 5th was added later on by, I believe it was Longfellow. But I believe it was. I could be wrong on that. But the 5th one was added later in the 1800s, but hardly anybody counts that one anymore. And it was added for the Civil War. So anyways. Good little razor. Shaves just like a Tech because it's a Tech copy. I paid 99 cents for that razor, 7% sales tax, so $1.06, and $4.25 for shipping. That's okay. Now, the 30 by 42 foot flag is still in the National Museum of American History, which is part of the Smithsonian Institute. That flag is still there to this day. It's been worked on twice. It's been had restoration done on it twice in its history. It's old. It's falling apart. I'd like to know what I did there. It's not bleeding. It's just really red. See, I'd always been taught that he was a prisoner on a British warship. Yes and no. He was being detained because he knew of the plans for the attack. He wasn't really a prisoner. I'm going to use the rose scented because this does have floral notes to it. He wasn't technically a prisoner. I'm going to use the 411 too. But what got him there was going to rescue his friend who had been picked up and arrested. Nivea, maximum hydration. That's too much, probably. It'll be alright. It's not a lot. So that's why we have the Star Spangled Banner. It became official. Oh, I know I wrote that date down somewhere. Oh, come on. I can't even read my own handwriting. It became official on August 3rd, 1931 is the national anthem of the United States. There was also This Country 'Tis of Thee, America the Beautiful, and I think it's Hail Columbia, were also patriotic songs after the Star Spangled Banner was written. Or actually I believe Hail Columbia was before. But they were written and sang as patriotic songs also. Alright guys, I'm at a half hour. I did not mean to keep you this long. I'm sorry. I will shut my mouth. Actually I'm longer than that. I'm at a half hour on this part. Plus I did the other two things prior. So we're at like 35 minutes. Alright guys, sorry to take up all your time, but that was a little bit long of a story, but it's interesting. You should read it sometime. It's really an interesting. There's 100 side stories to it too. So anyways, done with the babbling fat guy in the